Are we awake?
We're not sure.
Blazing Saddles wasn't just comedy, it was a bomb disguised as a western. In 1974, Hollywood didn't see it coming, a film that mocked racism so hard it made studios sweat, jokes so sharp they cut through decades of silence. Mel Brooks didn't follow the script, he rewrote the rules, then set them on fire. Real drunks were casted, a fourth wall got shattered, and somewhere in the chaos, comedy found its spine. Stay until the end to find out why one line almost destroyed the entire project. These are 20 weird facts about Blazing Saddles you didn't know. Warner Brothers executives sat in a dark screening room watching the first cut of Blazing Saddles. They didn't laugh, they didn't smile, they sat frozen, arms crossed, faces tight. When the lights came up, the verdict was instant: kill it. Too offensive, too risky, too dangerous for mainstream audiences. They demanded Mel Brooks gut entire scenes, strip out the slurs, soften the satire. Brooks didn't flinch, he refused every note. Instead of bending, he doubled down. He screened the film for studio employees, secretaries, janitors, anyone who would watch. The room exploded with laughter. People doubled over, tears streaming, gasping for air. The executives had no choice but to back down. Turns out the only thing offensive about Blazing Saddles was how funny it actually was. And in that moment, Brooks proved something Hollywood hates admitting: executives don't know comedy better than the people who pay to see it. Before the cameras rolled, before the casting locked, Mel Brooks wanted one man in the lead: Richard Pryor. Pryor didn't just help write the script, he gave it teeth. His jokes had bite, weight, danger. Brooks saw genius. He saw a comedian who could make people laugh while making them squirm. But the studio didn't see it that way. They saw headlines, baggage, controversy. They got scared, so they pulled him out before he ever got close to the saddle. The role went to Cleveland Little, who crushed it. Smooth, sharp, unforgettable. But the rhythm behind every joke, the edge beneath every line, that was still Pryor. He didn't wear the badge. He didn't ride the horse. But the movie ran on his voice from beginning to end. The irony stung. Pryor was too risky for the most unapologetically risky film ever made. The original name wasn't Blazing Saddles. It was Tex X, a parody of Malcolm X. Brooks hated it. He dumped it fast. He wanted a title that felt bold, ridiculous, impossible to ignore. Blazing Saddles sounded heroic and insane at the same time. It had punch. It had swagger. It didn't apologize for existing. Studio executives pushed back. They said it sounded like a 1970s adult film. Too suggestive. Too weird. Too risky. Brooks didn't care. He told them the title was the joke. It set the tone before the first frame even rolled. They backed off. And the result, one of the most unforgettable movie titles of all time. Because sometimes the name that makes executives sweat is the one audiences remember forever. Brooks knew the title had to promise chaos, and it delivered every time someone said it out loud. The infamous bean-eating campfire scene almost got cut. Censors flagged profanity, slurs, religious digs. They combed through every page looking for danger, but somehow they missed the fart symphony. Brooks insisted it stay. No compromise, no apologies. The night of the test screening, the theater sat silent for the first 20 minutes. Then came the sound. Loud, wet, unfiltered. One cowboy let loose, then another and another. Within seconds, the audience erupted. Laughter bounced off the walls. People were crying, slapping their knees, gasping for air. It was the world's first mainstream movie fart joke, and it broke the spell. The laughter didn't stop. It built scene after scene until the crowd was rolling. One ridiculous sound effect gave the audience permission to laugh, and Blazing Saddles went from a film the studio wanted to kill to a comedy they suddenly couldn't ignore. On the first day of filming, everything fell apart. The role of the Waco Kid wasn't supposed to go to Gene Wilder. It was originally given to Gig Young, an Oscar-winning actor with a serious face and a Hollywood pedigree. But the moment he stepped into the jail cell for his first scene, something was off. His hands were shaking, his voice kept cracking, and then mid-take he collapsed. It wasn't acting, it was withdrawal. Young was going through severe alcohol detox, and within hours, he was pulled from the production entirely. Mel Brooks didn't panic. He walked off set, picked up the phone and called Gene Wilder. No meetings, no casting call, just a quiet personal ask. Can you get on a plane tomorrow? Wilder said yes. By the next morning, he was standing on set, tired, jet-lagged, completely unprepared. But when the cameras rolled, he was the Waco Kid, and nobody ever questioned it again. The saloon scenes looked chaotic because they were. Many extras weren't actors. They were locals, and many of them were actually drunk. Brooks figured real chaos looks funnier than fake chaos. He let them stumble, slur, improvise, improvise. They knocked over chairs, missed their marks, and delivered lines like they'd lived them. Not method acting, more like method drinking. The result? A bar scene that felt alive, unpredictable, dangerous. In a movie full of absurdity, the drunks kept it honest, because sometimes the best performances come from people who aren't performing at all. Brooks later joked that he saved money on acting coaches by just opening the bar early. The cameraman had to dodge flying bottles and actual brawls more than once. And somehow, that raw energy made it into the final cut, unpolished and unforgettable. Nah, it looked like a cartoon. A cowboy walks up to a horse and decks it, but there was no trick shot, no clever editing. That was a real punch to a real horse, caught on camera. The stunt was choreographed carefully. A trained horse, a controlled angle, a stuntman with a real fist. One swing and down the horse went. Perfect take, first try. No animals were hurt. The horse was a professional, trained to fall safely on command, but audiences didn't know that. They gasped, then roared. It became one of the most shocking laugh moments in comedy history, because when Mongo knocked out that horse, the audience realized nothing was off limits. Brooks said later that the horse hit its mark better than most of the human actors, and deserved equal billing. The constant racial slurs made the ratings board panic. They flagged entire pages. They debated for weeks. Brooks argued the movie was condemning racism, not celebrating it. Every slur came from the mouth of a villain. Every joke punched upward at bigotry, not downward at victims. The board didn't buy it at first. They wanted an X rating. Brooks fought harder. He screened scenes. He explained satire. He refused to soften the blade. Finally, they reluctantly agreed. It received an R rating instead. Turns out satire is complicated when the jokes punch where it hurts, and Blazing Saddles punched harder than anything Hollywood had seen. The rating battle took weeks, with Brooks threatening to release the film unrated if they didn't back down. The villain's name was Hedley Lamar, a pompous, power-hungry schemer played by Harvey Korman. But the name wasn't random. It was a jab at Hollywood legend Hedy Lamarr, a glamorous actress known for beauty and brains. She didn't find it funny. She sued the studio for using her name without permission. Brooks joked they were going to call him Hedy just to make it worse. The case settled out of court. Hedy got paid. Hedley got famous. And the lawsuit became part of the legend. Because in a movie that broke every rule, even the villain's name caused legal chaos. Lamar's lawyers demanded the character be renamed entirely, but Brooks refused to budge. In the end, she received an undisclosed settlement, and the character kept the name. Brooks later admitted he picked the name specifically because it sounded ridiculous next to hers, which was exactly the point. Stephen Little and Gene Wilder believed the movie would bomb. They feared audiences wouldn't understand the satire. They worried the sharp social commentary would miss its mark. During filming, the vibe on set was tense. Was this brilliant or career suicide? Nobody knew. Then the premiere happened. People nearly fell out of their seats laughing. The test screening turned into a riot of applause. Critics called it genius wrapped in madness. And suddenly, the film everyone feared would fail became the film nobody could stop talking about. Sometimes the funniest movies start with doubt. Little later confessed he almost turned down the role because he thought it would end his career before it started. Wilder admitted he only took the part because he trusted Brooks, not because he believed in the script. But when the box office numbers came in, doubt turned into disbelief, and disbelief turned into legend. He was the director, the writer, the madman pulling every string behind the camera. But Mel Brooks wasn't done. He also jumped into 3 different roles on screen: Governor William J. Lepetamain, a Yiddish-speaking native elder, and a voice in a recording booth. He barely rehearsed. He'd show up, throw on a costume, scribble a few lines on set, and film. Each character felt like a fever dream, and that was the point. Brooks said playing multiple roles let him mock every corner of the system, from clueless politicians to broken Hollywood itself. Triple the Brooks, triple the insanity, and he proved it didn't take method acting or months of prep to make people laugh. Just nerve, chaos, and a willingness to wear a headdress while shouting in fake Yiddish.
Thank you, thank you. These things are defective.
Brooks originally wanted a professional wrestler for Mongo, someone massive, intimidating, impossible to ignore. But Alex Karras won the role with his deadpan delivery. He barely blinked, barely talked, and stole every scene. His performance was quiet terror mixed with childlike confusion. He played Mongo like a man who didn't understand the world but could crush it with his hands. Sometimes the scariest guy is the one who says nothing, and Karras proved that silence, delivered right, is funnier than any punchline. Brooks had initially approached several several WWF wrestlers, but none of them could nail the comedic timing Karras brought naturally. Karras was a former NFL defensive tackle, not an actor, which made his performance even more shocking. He later said he played Mongo exactly like himself on a bad day, confused, hungry, and ready to fight. The Mongo-only pawn in Game of Life line was improvised during rehearsal and became one of the film's most quoted moments.
The sheriff's going to do it!
The famous Candygram for Mongo gag was loosely scripted. Much of the dialogue was improvised on set. Brooks loved spontaneous chaos. He let actors riff, experiment, throw out wild lines. The delivery boy's nervous energy, Mongo's confused reaction, the explosion, all of it felt organic because most of it was. Turns out blowing up a bad guy with dynamite wrapped in candy never gets old, especially when nobody saw it coming. The actor playing the delivery boy was genuinely terrified of Karras, which made his stammering performance completely authentic. Brooks shot the scene in one take because he knew they'd never capture that level of panic again. The prop department built 3 separate exploding candy boxes, but they only needed one because Karras nailed his reaction on the first try. When the film premiered in New Mexico, one small town nearly rioted. Locals thought the movie was attacking the Western lifestyle and cowboy identity. They booed, they demanded refunds, some even walked out. Meanwhile, every major city audience was howling with laughter. The disconnect was stark. Rural viewers saw insult, urban viewers saw brilliance. Brooks later said the anger proved his point. The film wasn't mocking cowboys, it was mocking the myths Hollywood built around them. Turns out yelling "this is offensive" started long before Twitter. Theater owners in 3 Western states initially refused to book the film, calling it anti-American propaganda. One newspaper in Wyoming ran an editorial condemning the movie before it even screened locally, but the controversy only fueled ticket sales, and within weeks those same theaters were begging distributors for prints. The fourth wall breaks. The cast runs into a movie theater. Chaos becomes meta chaos. Executives begged Brooks to change it. They called it too insane, too disconnected, too confusing. Brooks doubled down. He said the ending was comedy anarchy. The whole point was to shatter the illusion, to remind audiences they were watching a movie that didn't care about being a movie. Executives didn't understand. Test audiences loved it, and Mel never explained it again, because if you're asking why the characters leave the movie, you probably weren't ready for Blazing Saddles in the first place. One Warner Brothers executive reportedly told Brooks the ending made him feel like he'd been punched in the brain. Brooks took it as a compliment. The studio wanted a traditional showdown in the desert, a clean, heroic finish. Instead, they got a brawl that spilled into other sound stages, crashed a musical number, and ended with the hero riding off in a limousine. Mel Brooks wanted everyone in on the joke, even the Duke. He offered John Wayne a cameo, playing himself in the film's chaotic finale. Wayne took the script, read a single page, then walked into Mel's office. "I love it," he said, "but I can't do it. My fans would never forgive me." Then he added something that stuck, "but I'll be first in line to see it." He wasn't kidding. Wayne showed up for opening night. He didn't appear in the movie, but the King of Westerns gave his blessing to the one that tore the whole genre down, and that might be the greatest endorsement of all. Brooks later said Wayne laughed so hard during the screening he had to leave the theater twice to catch his breath. The massive studio lot brawl near the end looks unhinged, but it was carefully choreographed. Brooks hired stuntmen, dancers, and slapstick specialists to mix fighting styles like a cartoon. The battle spilled into multiple sets, and even a musical number. Dom DeLuise appeared out of nowhere, leading a line of dancers in a chaotic chorus line meltdown. It was absurd, it was hilarious, and it almost never happened. Executives called it too insane, a waste of time, completely disconnected from the story. Brooks didn't argue, he just filmed it anyway. It was the largest comedy fight scene ever filmed at the time. Controlled insanity always looks the wildest. The sequence took 4 days to shoot and used over 200 extras, making it one of the most expensive jokes in the entire production. Hollywood westerns were dying. Audiences had moved on. Studios couldn't sell tickets. Then Blazing Saddles arrived and mocked the genre so hard it revived public interest. People suddenly loved westerns again. They wanted the swagger, the horses, the showdowns. To destroy something so perfectly that you save it, that's talent. Brooks didn't resurrect the western. He gave it a funeral so good everyone wanted to attend. Within 2 years of the film's release, western production at major studios increased by 40%. Directors who had abandoned the genre returned with fresh ideas and modern twists. Brooks had proven that even dying genres could thrive if you were willing to laugh at them first.
Not only was it authentic frontier gibberish, it expressed a courage little seen in this day and age.
A movie filled with fart jokes and racial satire earned Academy Award nominations. Best Supporting Actress for Madeline Kahn. Best Film Editing, Best Original Song, 3 nominations, 0 wins. The Academy wasn't ready, critics loved it, audiences worshipped it, but Hollywood insiders were too uncomfortable. The satire was too sharp, the language too raw, the whole thing too dangerous to celebrate publicly. Mel Brooks later joked, "They didn't give us Oscars, but they gave us something better, repeat earnings." And maybe he was right, because the statue might have looked nice on a shelf, but the laughs, they're still echoing 50 years later. Madeline Kahn's performance as Lily von Stupp became one of the most iconic comedic roles in cinema history, even without the trophy. After the movie's massive success, the studio saw dollar signs. They did what studios do best. They tried to turn Lightning into a sitcom. It was called Black Bart, a cleaned up, censored, laugh-tracked version of Blazing Saddles for network television. Same characters, same setup, no edge. No soul, no jokes that landed. Warner Brothers filmed a handful of episodes, never broadcast them, and shelved the whole thing like it never existed. Even Brooks refused to acknowledge it. Turns out you can't bottle lightning twice, especially lightning that swears. The pilot was so sanitized that test audiences sat in complete silence, unsure if they were watching comedy or drama. Network censors had stripped out every controversial element, leaving behind a hollow shell that resembled the original in name only. Brooks later said watching the pilot made him physically ill, and he threatened legal action if the studio ever tried to air it. During early screenings, one confused Warner Brothers executive reportedly asked Mel Brooks if the racism and language in the movie were based on real Frontier interviews. Brooks stared, then he laughed, then he told him, "No, you fool, it's a joke about people like you." The movie wasn't just satire, it diagnosed the audience too. Sometimes comedy doesn't imitate life, it exposes it. And that executive, sitting in the dark, confused by his own reflection, proved the movie's sharpest point. The biggest joke was always the people who didn't get it. Brooks framed the moment perfectly. The film held up a mirror, and some people couldn't recognize what they saw. Blazing Saddles wasn't just a movie. It was a revolution with dynamite in its saddlebags. It mocked bigotry, rewired satire, and proved audiences can laugh and think at the same time. Mel Brooks didn't ask permission. He didn't soften the blow. He just loaded the cannon and fired. And 50 years later, the echoes are still ringing, because some films entertain, some films provoke, and some films do both so well they rewrite what cinema can be. Share the story, remember the chaos. History deserves the spotlight.